I'm going to share a memory with you. I was 4 years old, maybe 5, and for the first time in my life, my mother bought me an ice cream from a street vendor. I no longer remember the vendor's face. I don't remember the day, the place, or the season. Probably summer. I remember we were walking home. I remember sniffing the ice cream. The smell of that vanilla ice cream told me for the first time, I will be with you forever. Years later, it was the late 90s. I was 17, I was at Cannes High School, here in Cannes. I met a young woman at a party. She wasn't in any of my classes. She wore a perfume, vanilla. The same scent, yet something completely different. Although I immediately recognized the smell of vanilla, it was the first time I had smelled a vanilla perfume, something I had never felt before. A mix of attraction, dizziness, and absolute lightness. That night, she bewitched me. Her perfume bewitched me. Today, 30 years later, when I smell vanilla, something happens. In a split second, I'm no longer here. I'm that child discovering his first ice cream. I'm a young high school student in Cannes, and I remember those carefree, youthful moments. And you, have you ever experienced something similar? A scent that instantly takes you somewhere else, without warning, without you deciding it. What you just did, and what I just told you about with the vanilla, is neurobiology. And today, I'm going to explain exactly what happens in your brain when a smell brings an entire past back to your consciousness. But first, let's lay out the problem. We live in a civilization that has forgotten this major sense, the sense of smell. Everything has been optimized for the eyes, the ears, and touch. We have screens, notifications, TV and YouTube videos, books, letters, emails, newsletters, social networks. All of that is sight, hearing, and touch. We consume images and sounds in industrial quantities. And meanwhile, the sense of smell, the oldest sense, is neglected. That's the paradox of our time. In a world that is going to be dominated by robots and artificial intelligence, a world that automates everything logical, rational, and calculable, what remains irreplaceably human is our ability to feel emotions, to freely associate ideas, to imagine what does not yet exist. And your sense of smell is the most direct gateway to all of that. Yet no one ever taught you to pay attention to your nose. School didn't teach you, nor did your professional training. No one did? Your general practitioner gives you tests for vision and hearing, for balance, but never for your sense of smell. Well, we're going to fix this injustice together. Let me introduce myself. My name is Harry Masudi. I have a doctorate in molecular biology. I was a researcher at the University of Côte d'Azur and at the CNRS. I spent years studying the cellular and molecular mechanisms that govern human physiology. And for 15 years now, I have been helping companies assimilate scientific knowledge and especially to develop products that stimulate and flatter our senses, because that's the only way for a brand to leave a memorable mark in our minds. And so, by studying how to make a product memorable, I realized something obvious. Odorant molecules do something absolutely extraordinary and unique in the human brain, something that no other sense does. All the other senses, sight, hearing, touch, taste, they all pass through a relay in the brain that acts as a filter, a sort of customs checkpoint that analyzes, sorts, and censors before passing the information on to reasoning, which in most cases says no. Olfaction, on the other hand, has no filter. Now we're going to take a few minutes to talk about anatomy and neurobiology. And don't worry, it's going to be very easy to understand. Imagine you're standing on a crowded SNCF train platform. There's a deafening noise, hundreds of travelers, rolling suitcases, announcements over the loudspeaker, the cold, pigeons, trains braking, trains starting up. All your senses pick up this information, but you're not aware of it because your attention is focused on the tunnel. You're concentrating on the arrival of your train. Have you ever experienced a moment like that? But how does it work in your brain? In fact, your brain has a system whose function is to filter. It's the thalamus. The thalamus is a bit like the brain's customs office. It decides what is important, what is not, what is allowed to reach consciousness, and what will be pushed back into the unconscious. And since, at that moment on the train platform, your priority is your train, the thalamus filters out all the unnecessary sensory information that your senses are constantly picking up. Are you still with me so far? Now, imagine that suddenly a traveler walks right past you with a huge pot of hot popcorn. Instantly, the scent molecules enter your nose. And then something fascinating happens. Unlike the other senses, the sense of smell has a direct pathway to the brain's emotional center, the amygdala, and then right after to the center involved in memory, the hippocampus. And suddenly, boom, your emotional brain and your memory recognize the smell of popcorn. The powerful emotion-memory duo sends the information to your consciousness, that is, the cortex, which is the outermost part of your brain. And then, in your consciousness, you have cinema, childhood, pleasure, comfort. And the cortex, in a fraction of a second, sends a command to the muscles in your neck and face. And then what happens? Your head turns, your eyes follow the popcorn, your mouth almost starts to water. For that moment, your train no longer exists. Then, a fraction of a second later, the thalamus takes over again. It updates the priority. The popcorn isn't interesting. We don't know the person. Our goal is the train. It pushes the smell into the background, and your unconscious mind refocuses your attention on your train. But the smell has already won a battle. It broke your attention, awakened your memory, and triggered salivation. And you're going to think about that damn popcorn for the whole trip. That's the power of odor molecules. Odor molecules are stronger than your willpower, your attention, and all your other senses, which are under the control of the thalamic gatekeeper. That's why the vanilla from my childhood, or when I was 17, can sweep over me in a tenth of a second, 30 years later. It's not magic, it's neurobiological mechanics. Now, let's lay out the central idea. So here is the idea I want to leave you with. Just one idea, but it changes everything. Your nose is not just a primitive organ used to detect edible food or avoid danger. The sense of smell is the only sense directly connected to your emotions, the amygdala, and to your memory, the hippocampus, without passing through the gatekeeper, the thalamus. That's why a smell can take you back to your childhood in a tenth of a second. That's why a smell can change your mood without you even realizing it. That's why a smell can open up mental associations that your logical brain would never have allowed. And if all this is true, then retraining your sense of smell means unleashing your ability to fully experience emotions, to freely associate ideas, and therefore to create differently. And creating differently simply means solving problems in a creative way. Your sense of smell is the most powerful lever for unlocking your creativity. And creativity is the greatest asset we have in a world that will be dominated by robots. Now that you have the theory, let's move on to practice. I'm going to give you 3 concrete keys to work on your sense of smell. Key number 1, the power of scents. Get yourself some rosemary cineole essential oil. You can find it in any pharmacy. I'll let you smell this aroma. Rosemary is an astonishingly ordinary plant. It's used as a decorative plant, as a utility plant for making hedges, and it's used in Herbe de Provence because it's very aromatic. But rosemary is actually an incredible plant precisely because of its aromatic bouquet. Smell it slowly, just once. The essential oil from rosemary leaves has a double peculiarity. The first is its aromatic power. That's the classic path. The aromatic molecules in rosemary, cineole, alpha-pinene, camphor, verbenone, borneol, are captured and recognized by the olfactory receptor neurons in your nose, and the information is then processed by your brain, which makes you aware of it. That's the scent you're perceiving right now. It's also one of the aromas in your Herbe de Provence mix for your summer barbecues. The second distinctive feature of rosemary is that it contains a molecule called cineole. This molecule passes directly into the brain, freely crossing all barriers, which very few substances can do, and it increases the availability of acetylcholine, a neurotransmitter linked to memory and attention. Everyone who has smelled rosemary, your brain is literally in a better state for memorization right now than it was 2 minutes ago. With rosemary, you have an incredible tool to boost your intellectual performance. When you need to focus on an intellectual task, devote time and attention to it, and also need to memorize what you're doing, like I am with this lecture, place some rosemary cineole essential oil near you. I specify cineole essential oil because there are different varieties of rosemary essential oil. All rosemary essential oils contain cineole, but the one labeled rosemary cineole is the richest in cineole. But you can also take fresh rosemary leaves, crush them in the palm of your hands, and inhale the aromas. I do it all the time whenever I see a rosemary hedge. Now, I suggest a first ritual for you to develop at home with rosemary. Get yourself some rosemary cineole essential oil or some rosemary leaves. When you wake up, before you check your phone, before your coffee, take 10 seconds. Smell your rosemary and ask yourself these two questions while inhaling the rosemary. What is the most important thing I want to create today? What is the problem I want to solve today? Remember that for your brain, creating or solving a problem is the same task. It's school that made us believe these were two different things. On one side, we have art and creativity with drawing and music classes, and on the other, we have problem solving with math. In reality, for the brain, this is absurd because in both cases, creating or solving a problem, the brain does the same thing, which is to find a solution. So if you start your day by stimulating your sense of smell with rosemary and with the 12 incantations I mentioned to you, what is the most important thing I want to create today? What is the problem I want to solve today? You begin your day with your creativity unleashed. The creativity switch is turned on and you increase your chances of finding a creative, original solution to your problem. Key number 2, your olfactory memories are the glue of all your memories. Now, I'm going to tell you about an extraordinary mechanism. Your brain does not store the memory of smells like it does with the other senses. With the sense of sight, your brain stores the memory of the beach you saw with your eyes in the form of images. We can all recall images of landscapes or faces that we have captured with our eyes. Similarly, with the other senses, we can remember the voice of someone we know, and likewise, we can recall a texture. For smells, it's very different. I can close my eyes, and no matter how hard I try, I can't recall the smell of vanilla. With smells, the brain stores complete emotional states. When you smelled an odor during a significant moment in your life, like I did with my first vanilla ice cream, a moment of discovery, intense joy, trust, love, lightness. Your brain encoded everything together. The smell, of course, the emotion, the physiological state, the context in which the moment was experienced, that is, the images, the sounds, the textures, the taste, everything. And when you smell that scent again, even decades later, it's not just a memory of the smell that comes back. It's the entire state that returns fully to your awareness. The lightness, the trust, the energy. Your body feels them again. On the other hand, with the other senses, when you deliberately recall the beach from your vacation, it's the image of the beach that comes back to your imagination. But you don't have the sound of the waves, the smell of the sand, the sound of the birds, the warmth of the sand. However, if you smell the sand from your vacation, then the whole package comes back to you instantly. That's the power of smell. Now, let's move on to another experiment. For this experiment, get yourself some lemon essential oil. I'm going to ask you to do something. When you have the stick in your hand, close your eyes. Smell the stick you have in your hand. Once you have the stick, don't try to identify the scent. Don't try to name it, even though it's a familiar scent. Just let whatever comes to your mind spontaneously infuse. An image, a word, a color, a memory, a moment from your life. Don't analyze. Let whatever comes to your mind come. What came to your mind? Did everyone recognize the lemon aroma? The scent of lemon increases your attention and improves your ability to collaborate with other human beings. All of this happens without you even realizing it. Now, I'd like to suggest a second ritual for you to do at home. Choose a scent that you particularly like. It can be an essential oil from a plant or a perfume, meaning a blend of several aromas. Next, you will use this scent systematically in only one context. Always the same scent, always the same context. After a few weeks, something remarkable happens in your brain. This scent becomes a kind of double trigger in your brain. You smell the scent, and your brain recognizes the context. It changes your emotional state before you've even started doing anything. It's exactly the same mechanism that brought me back to being 17 just now with the vanilla. But here, you are going to use it deliberately in the direction you want. In other words, instead of being led by the nose by your sense of smell, you will be the one leading, guiding your sense of smell in the direction you choose. In this way, you can associate a particular scent with an emotional or intellectual state that you are trying to achieve. For example, you can associate the scent of lavender with the emotional state of returning to calm after a day at work. To do this, every time you come home after a tiring day at work, take a few minutes to relax with the scent of lavender. So every time you feel tense or irritated, you smell lavender, and that scent will press the return to calm button in your brain. Conversely, you can associate a scent like mint with an energized emotional state in a dynamic context. And when you need to motivate yourself to do something you don't feel like doing, like going to the gym, you smell your mint, which will automatically press the energy motivation button in your brain. Key number 3. Exploring the unknown. For this experiment, I hand out sticks soaked in rose geranium essential oil, but I don't reveal the name of the scent to the audience. Now, I'm going to let you smell a scent that some of you might know and others not at all. Cheers. Tell me what this makes you think of. Did this scent make you think of something you weren't expecting? No one in this room had exactly the same experience. None of your answers are wrong. This is what we call creative olfaction. Here, your brain is making connections that logic would never have allowed. Your brain is operating in a free, associative, undirected mode. In neuroscience, this is called the default mode network. It's the brain network that activates when you daydream, when you meditate, when you let your mind wander freely. And it's precisely in this state that original ideas are born, not from consuming content, not from actively reading complicated books, not from performance, not from optimization. It's through undirected sensory exploration that original ideas are born. What you smelled was geranium essential oil. Some of you thought of a rose. Others smelled something greener, fresher. What's fascinating about this aroma is that we can't quite put a name to it except for professional perfumers. They are virtuosos. And that's why the scent of geranium is useful for helping with non-obvious associations of ideas. Since we can't recognize it, the brain will open all the drawers of your memory and try to associate this scent with ideas, memories, sensations in a free-flowing way. So it's a good tool to stimulate creativity. Now, I suggest you establish a third ritual at home. Once a week, smell a scent you don't know. Treat yourself to a box of essential oils and do just one thing. Let images, words, memories, sensations, and associations come freely to your mind, without judging them, without forcing them, without trying to identify the scent you're smelling, and without trying to be creative at all costs. Simply let your brain do what it does best when you leave it alone, but stimulate it with a scent, preferably one you don't know. And I guarantee you that your next original idea is hidden in a scent you haven't smelled yet. This ritual is the most difficult for an audience used to performance and intellectual rigor. 2 + 1 = 3, not 2 or 4. School has conditioned us for performance and the right answer. I know it's counterintuitive, but that's precisely why it works. You have to allow your brain to wander, to roam, and your sense of smell is the most powerful vessel for this journey. We are coming to the end of this talk. Biologists say that human beings are social mammals. Yes, that's true. We live for interaction with our fellow human beings. This day is proof of that. But above all, we are emotional beings. And to feel alive, we have a vital need to experience emotions. And what could be more powerful and direct than smells to make us feel emotions? Take the example of people we call drama queens. In fact, these people are constantly seeking out drama in order to feel emotions, albeit negative ones. Because yes, emotions, even negative ones, are also among the vital emotions we need. I have one last ritual for you, just one thing, simple but fundamental, which goes against good manners, but I ask you to break the rule. Like children, sniff your dishes, your fruits and vegetables. Sniff your dishes, even in a Michelin-starred gourmet restaurant. Great chefs do it, and for good reason, so you should do it too.